Well, shalom, my friends, and welcome to our video Bible study series entitled Every Jot and Tittle. That, of course, is from the King James Version in the English, jot being a translation of the Hebrew word yod, which is the smallest letter in the Hebrew alphabet. Looks like an apostrophe. Here, my pointer is circling a yod there. And then the tittle is coats in Hebrew, which is the word for a thorn, which is the sticky out part of some letters that distinguishes them from some others. For example, here in the word achat, we have a chet, and right next to it, we have a tav, and the only difference is the sticky out part in the lower left corner of this, which distinguishes these two letters from each other. Yeshua said in the Sermon on the Mount, "For verily I say unto you, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law." That would be the law of Moses, or the law of God, really, till all be fulfilled. In other words, everything that God has said will be completed, all the predictions fulfilled, all the truths will have become reality. So this speaks to us of the inspiration and reliability of the Bible, not just with general ideas or sentences or words, but even to the degree of letters and parts of letters. We have emphasized in the past also that the larger letters that you see on the screen here are the consonants, which reflect the biblical text. There were no vowels written in the biblical era, nor are there vowels normally written in modern Hebrew because they're not necessary. People know the appropriate vowel sounds, and it's easy to insert them where they need to be. The vowels, which are these little symbols below and above the consonants, were added by the Masoretes in the 6th to ninth centuries AD. A great asset to us who may not have Hebrew as our native language, our most common and most fluent language, so we'll know how to pronounce these words. And the vowels also help us to determine some areas of parsing of these words. They're kind of breaking the words down into their parts of speech and stuff like that. So we are going to dig into the Hebrew, the text of the Hebrew Bible, and go about as deep as you can go, looking at every letter and every part of letters and see what we can learn from there. One suggestion on my part, not really a prerequisite, but if you're interested in this video series, Jot and Tittle, I would encourage you, first of all, to go to my YouTube page. Just do a search on my name. It'll bring you to this channel page. Go to the playlist, and the one you're looking for is Hebrew School, which is kind of an introduction to biblical Hebrew and actually a little bit of modern Hebrew also. The two are similar, but of course the vocabulary is different because there are so many thousands of years difference between modern and ancient Hebrew. If you go through Hebrew School, it's about 30 videos. I think it'll make it easier for you to recognize what we're talking about because we're basically going to be talking in a foreign language in this series. So let's go ahead to our text for today from our Accordance Bible software. And this is the platform we've been using previously. In the upper window here that I'm circling with my pointer, that's the Masoretic text of the Hebrew Bible with vowels and accents and a bunch of other cool stuff. And this particular version I'm using has a lot of lexicon material. If I highlight a word and then you look down in the information window at the bottom of the page where my pointer is waving around, it gives you all kinds of information about that word, a lot of parsing information. And that's the thing we're focusing on in this series So we will be referring to that with great frequency. We'll be looking at that information window. And then for us English speakers, I've also got the New King James Version, also with Strong's information down in the information window, just to kind of give us an orientation. It's easy to go into these Hebrew words and just get lost, especially if we say a lot about each one. It's hard to keep track of what these sentences are saying. So today we're going to be in Genesis chapter 2, right at the beginning. A very good place to start. Um, I would like to get through 3 verses today because verse 4 in Genesis chapter 2 has a very important subject that I want to really focus on in the next video. So I'd like to get through all 3 verses, 1, 2, and 3, if we're able to do that. So we'll be doing some jotting and tittling. We'll be doing some yoding and coaxing, but maybe not as much as we've done before. And we really don't need to do that because a lot of the words, in fact, most of the words that we're going to be encountering today, you've already have. And you may have even kind of memorized these words. They're now part of your Hebrew vocabulary. Outstanding. So let's begin with Genesis 2, verse 1. We start out with our Va-yichtol, or a Vav consecutive, it's also known as. I learned it as a Vav conversive, because what the Vav consecutive does is it changes the aspect of the word that follows, usually a verb that follows. Makes future tense verbs past and past tense verbs future. Although aspect really doesn't have so much to do with time as it does with aspect, which is the distinction between some words that are completed action. John ran. The running was complete, so it was probably done in the past. And John will run, indicating the future. It's a action that has not been completed, maybe has not even started. Present tense verbs can also be, and usually are, present tense, especially in biblical Greek for the New Testament. Present tense words are almost always continuous action. So this word, if we look down at the information window at the bottom of the page, here's our text version of the word. Here is the 3-letter root of the verb, or also actually the 3-letter root is usually shown in the information window in parenthesis. Here it's just the 3 letters, but they happen to be the same as the root. This is the lexicon form of that word. And you'll notice that the 3 radicals, or the 3 root letters, are kaf, lamed, he. But if we look up at our text, we'll see the kaf here, the lamed here, but the he is gone. So one of the things that we've talked about quite a bit already is weak verbs. So he in the 3rd position is a weak letter. And oftentimes it drops out, especially if there is a suffix or a subformative added to the end of the word. So that's the case here. Oftentimes, the information in the information window says this is an apocryphated form. I would call this an apocryphated form because the he has dropped out, but it doesn't say apocryphated here. It does say vav consecutive. And remember, the characteristics of a vav consecutive are a patach under the vav instead of a shva. Usually there is a dagish within the yod or underneath the yod. It's not in this case. And one of the things I notice is that there is a shva under the yod, which means when we pronounce this word, we are going to pronounce the patach. This is going to be va, but actually vi. But then we're going to jump right to the kaf and its vowel, which is a kibbutz. So the the vowel or the schwa underneath the yod is not going to be pronounced. A dagesh in a letter, especially a strong dagesh, has a tendency to double that letter. So there's really not two Y sounds here. If we look down here in this word, va yishabot, meaning he rested, we do have a dot in the dagesh, but we have a regular vowel underneath the yod. So what we've got is va yish yishbot. So here the vowel is pronounced. So I think that may be why there is no vowel, there's no dagesh in the yod, because we're just going to kind of jump past the yod. Yod is also one of the letters in the Skinnem-Levy paradigm, where basically letters that start with those sounds, the E on the end of Skinnem-Levy is the yod. And so yod is one of the letters where you would expect to see a dagesh, but sometimes you don't, just because of functionality or because of pronunciation or whatever. So this is a imperfect form of the word kala, which means to finish or to complete. And if we look at the sopformative here, which is right at the end of the, it is left of the lamed. What we've got is a shurek here, which is a U sounding vowel, and it's also the indication of a plural. So if we had just the yod without the shurek, it would be he completed. But this is they completed, plural. So, we would expect the word following to be Elohim, God completed, but we have a plural here. And a kibbutz under the kaf is an indication that this is a passive verb instead of an active verb. Okay? This could be a kal form if it didn't have the dagesh here and the lamed. It could be a kal form, just an ordinary basic verb form. But if the kal had this kibbutz here, the U sound, then it would be an indication that it was a kal passive. Now, again, if we go to the information window, we see that this is a pu'al. We've already encountered PL forms, which also have a dagesh in the second letter. Now, I know this looks like the third letter of the word, but remember the hey has dropped out. So the lamed is the middle letter, the pei ayin lamed, or the 1, 2, 3 of the three-letter radical root of this word. So it's either a PL, meaning intensive, like really completed, or it's a passive. The kibbutz tells us that it's passive. So this is they were completed. Now again, with the yod, it looks like it's future, an incomplete or an imperfect, incomplete action verb. But remember, the vav consecutive changes the aspect. So this is something that happened in the past. It is passive and plural. So they were completed. So now we want to get to the subject and find out what was completed. And it's ha shamayim, ha being the definite article with the expected patach underneath. So we have a dagesh in the sheen, which is an indication that the lamed from hal has assimilated into the first radical and in the form of a dagesh. So it's the dagesh there is how we know that there used to be a lamed there, but there's not anymore, just a dagesh. So shamayim is technically in the dual form. The patach yod hirek mem is the dual form, meaning two heavens. And we talked about the visible heavens and the invisible heavens, the third heaven being invisible to our mortal eyes. But the Bible talks about three heavens. So this is called a masculine plural in our information window down there. We know there are three heavens, and that's plural. So I'm going to quit complaining about not identifying this as a dual form. The technical information I got on that was that oftentimes dual forms are um, uh, they're morphologically dual, but functionally they are plural. So I guess that's the way they weasel out of that one. So I'm going to quit complaining about that. This is not the only subject. We have an additional subject indicated by our Vav Shva, which is a called a vekatal or a Vav conjunctive, and it just means and it doesn't necessarily affect the aspect of the word that follows, like it would if it was a verb. Actually, this is not a vekatal. Vekatals are vavs connected to verbs, and this is connected to a noun. And the noun here is haaretz, ha being the definite article, the aretz. And when we talked about the creation in Genesis 1:1, we talked about the fact that aretz, the word aretz, can mean like the name of the planet Earth. It can mean the dry land part of the planet Earth, or later on in biblical history, it will come to mean the promised land, the land of Israel. And I think the context here would indicate that this is talking about the name of the planet Earth. So the heavens and the earth were completed on this particular day in Genesis 2:1. So the heavens and the earth are the subject. The verb is passive. It is a pual passive, intensive. So they were really like totally completed on this day. And more subject. There's not only a dual subject, but a triple subject. Here again, we have va with shva underneath, so that is just the vav conjunctive. Kol means every or all, sava'am. And remember, these two words are connected with a makef here. I think that's the word for a bridge, which kind of runs these two words together. Sava'am is an interesting word. And here in our English version, thus the heavens and the earth and all the host of them were finished. So I don't know if you've ever heard like religious references to the host of heaven, the host of heaven. If we're talking about the third heaven, that would be God, all three persons, uh, and also the other occupants of heaven, of the third heaven, holy angels, um, uh, some human beings who have died and gone to heaven in their spirit bodies. So far, Jesus is the only one who has received a resurrection body. No, I hesitate. I hesitate on that. There's a passage in Matthew 27 where it talks about what I would take to be the Old Testament saints being resurrected after Jesus. Jesus is definitely the first to have received a resurrection body, and then this host of Old Testament saints afterwards. So a host of creatures or beings, including human beings, is talking about a lot of creatures. Now, if we go to the information window at the bottom of the page, some of the glosses or suggested translations are host, army, war, and service. So army, war, and service have kind of a military feel to them. And that really is what this word means. Tsava means to make war, to fight battles, either spiritual battles or earthly battles. A couple of other things on this word. If we look down at the bottom of the page, we've got our textual form, lexicon form, Sadi, Bet, Aleph. Those are the three root letters. And this is a common singular construct. The makef makes it a construct. So all of the tzava'am. The thing that I wanted to mention about this is oftentimes nouns and even verbs, I suppose, that end in an aleph have their origin in the ancient language of Aramaic, or maybe I should say the dialect of Aramaic. So I've got to share a theory with you, and my theory is that the original spoken language, um, the language that God spoke with Adam and Eve, I believe it was Hebrew, because the names that are given to the creatures, the birds, the fish, the flocks and herds, and so forth, and to human beings. The names of human beings also have a significance in the way their lives played out. And that is only true in Hebrew. It's not true in English. It's not true in Greek. It's not even true in Aramaic. So I believe Hebrew was the original language. And then as people spread out on the earth and populated different areas, different dialects arose. And I'm going to show you a map in a second of where the different dialects come from. Well, maybe I'll go ahead and pull the map up here so we can take a look at this. So here is a map of, actually this map is called the Migration of Abraham, but it shows a decent portion of the Middle East. One of the most important things to point out here is the Tigris and Euphrates rivers. You'll notice that these rivers begin in these, I think these are the Caucasus Mountains or the Taurus Mountains. The Tigris and Euphrates rivers originate up here in the mountains. And you can see they're coming down and then they branch off into the Tigris River on the north and the Euphrates River on the south. So the land between these two rivers was very fertile in ancient times, which is critical for this kind of area because this is all desert. This is all desert. But because there are two rivers running through it, it provided like flooding of the dry lands to provide, water for crops and stuff like that. Also, people discovered how to do irrigation and things like that. So in Greek, I believe it is, the word for this area between the two rivers is Mesopotamia. Meso meaning between. Potamos is the Greek word for rivers, so between the two rivers. Let me start down here where in the lower right-hand corner here, just above the Persian Gulf, on the Euphrates River, we have the city of Ur. If you're familiar with the story of Abraham, that seems to be the place where Abraham was born. In our English Bibles, it's called Ur of the Chaldeans. Chaldeans being like a race of people or a geographical area and the people that came from that geographical area. So I'm kind of circling Chaldea. In the Hebrew, the word Chaldean is Kasdim, Kasdim. So the name of the city in Hebrew would be Ur Kasdim. And I believe the people in this area spoke a dialect of Hebrew called Aramaic, or we call it Aramaic. It was called the Chaldean language, or to speak in Kasdim would be a dialect of Hebrew. In the genealogies, we'll come across one family, and it turns out to be the family of Abraham that maintained the Hebrew language. And for a long time, those people are called the Hebrews, then they're called Israel, and so forth. So the language that was spoken down here with Abraham was Aramaic. Abraham and his family probably followed this red arrow on the ground to bring them to a place called Haran, which was the name of a city where they settled for a little while before they continued their journey south into the Promised Land, or Haaretz, the Promised Land, Eretz Israel. So Haran is in a region called Padan Aram. Aram is the Hebrew way of saying Syria. So on a modern map, this is Syria. And now we would say that the Syrians speak Syrian, the Syrian language. But in biblical times, this was called Aram. Later in biblical times, it's called Syria. But in basically Old Testament times, it's called Aram. Padan means the plain of Aram. So these are plains at the foot of a mountain. This is all plains in Mesopotamia. So the region here is called Padan Aram, and Haran is the city where Abraham and his extended family settled for a while before going into the Promised Land. Aram, the name for Syria, is the origin of the language that was spoken there, which was Aramaic. Now, we've said that Abraham grew up where Aramaic or Chaldean was spoken. Then he moved to Haran, where Aramaic was spoken. But I maintain that the family of Abraham, from the very beginning, maintained the Hebrew language, even though Aramaic was spoken all around them. But it's no surprise when we get the Bible in the Hebrew language, and then you have quotations from all these people who lived among the Aramaic speakers and had to have business dealings with them and stuff like that. So the Hebrew speakers were very much aware of the Aramaic language, and a lot of Aramaic words have come into the Hebrew language. So don't be surprised when you see lots and lots of Aramaic of words of Aramaic origin, and this is one. Tsava is an Aramaic word that has become a Hebrew word. It's a Hebrew word now, but the origin is Aramaic. Another Aramaic origin word that we have come across is bara, which is our word for created, ex nihilo, from nothing. Beit resh aleph. Again, it ends in an aleph, so that's of not always, but often of Aramaic origin. So let's see here. So this is talking about the hosts, plural. The am ending is plural. So this is the hosts of heaven. Um, and I'm not going to limit it to God or to angels or to human beings who eventually, after Jesus rose from the dead, went to the third heaven to be with God. Prior to that, they went to the underworld. And we just don't have time to talk about that today in this video, but we will at some point. The other thing I want to point out about these Aramaic words that end, that have the third radical as an aleph, often that aleph is similar to what we would call a definite article in Hebrew. The modern Hebrew word for father is Abba. Aleph, Beit, Aleph. So again, it's a three-letter root that ends in Aleph. And sure enough, Abba, which is a name for one's father, is Aramaic, but the Aleph oftentimes refers to like a definite article. So it's almost like saying the father. So if you wanted to say the Father in Hebrew, and you wanted to use the Aramaic form, you wanted to use Abba instead of Av, you would not say Ha-Abba, because the final aleph in Abba serves as a definite article. So if you just say Abba, you're saying the Father. Now, if I wanted to say my house in Hebrew, bayit is the, or yeah, bayit is the Hebrew word for house, or bait, I guess is the three-letter root. So bayit in Hebrew. But if I wanted to say my house, it would be habayit. So oftentimes a direct article is, a way of saying the Father. So if I say the house, I'm talking about my house that I live in. If I say Abba, I'm talking about my father, not just a father in general. So Hebrew is for father is Av without the aleph ending. But I like the Abba. It's kind of like saying daddy instead of dad. So I think we've spent enough time on that. So what did we learn here in verse 1? They were completed, the heavens and the earth and all the Savaam, all of the hosts of them. Verse 2, let's read verse 2 in English. And on the seventh day, God ended his work, which he had done, and he rested on the seventh day from all his work, which he had done. A little bit repetitive there, but that's fine. Vayikal, Vayikal. Let's check that out. That is likely the verb. So we go down here to the information window. Here's our text form, lexicon form, which also happens to be the three-letter root. Kaf Lamed Hey. And sure enough, we've got Kaf and Lamed here, but no Hey. So this is completed. We've already encountered this, right, in Genesis 1. So again, we're dealing with an apocryphated form or a weak third radical, hey, that drops out. So this is going to be just like in verse 1, only it's not they were completed, vaikalu, but this is vaikal. So he completed. And then we have the subject that follows. The subject is Elohim. So Elohim completed Bayom Hashavi'i. So here we have our root word, which is Yom, which we have encountered many times in the first chapter of Genesis. So it's the word for Yom with an inseparable bet prefix. So the bait prefix, meaning in, at, or with, does not stand alone. It's always attached to another word. Some of our prepositions can stand alone and can also be attached as a prefix. Like min, for example, means from, and it can stand alone, or the mem part can be a prefix, but then the noon assimilates into the word as a dagesh. So here we've got ba yom. One of the things we need to look at is that we don't have the typical shva underneath the bait, which would mean that it was just a normal preposition. But here we have the patach and a dagesh in the yod, which is an indication that there used to be a definite article here. The preposition bait has replaced the definite article, but the vowel patach for the definite article remains under the bait. So that's how we know this is the day instead of a day. So if there was a shva under here, this would be in a day. But since we've got our patach here, indicative of a definite article, we've got in the day. So in a particular day, which day would that be? Well, the adjective that follows here tells us that it is ha-shvi'i, the seventh. Here again is our definite article. So nouns and adjectives have to match up in definiteness. So even if there wasn't a indication of a definite article here, which there is, but if there wasn't, we would still know that this is definite because its adjective is definite. So this is the Shavi'i, which is the Hebrew word for seventh, the seventh day. So in Genesis chapter 1, we dealt with 6 creative days or restorative days or reformative days, however you want to refer to the 6 days, after what I believe is the original creation back, way back, prehistory type thing. So after each day, we have had kind of a summary of what happened that day. There was evening and the morning. There was the 7th day. We are not going to encounter that in this text. There apparently is going to be no end to the 7th day because it doesn't say there was evening and there was morning and then the day ended. So this seems like an eternal day. Now, you may think I'm really going out on a limb to make that assertion, but let me go to another Bible software program that I have here set up. And so this is Olive Tree Bible software, which I really love. It may be my favorite, especially on my iPhone and iPad. I really like the device formats. It's not so great on the laptop. But anyway, in Hebrews 4, it's talking about the 7th day, the day of rest, that I'm suggesting is a never-ending day. So therefore, I think Paul wrote Hebrews, but scholars differ on that. So that kind of a moot point, I guess. Therefore, since a promise remains of entering his rest, rest being the Hebrew word Shabbat, or the Greek word for rest, which I don't remember exactly what it is. Maybe I can pop it up here. Oh, katapausis, like to pause or to cease. Let us fear lest any of you seem to have come short of it. So whoever wrote Hebrews is writing to people in the 1st century AD. Centuries, millennia after the creation, after the Genesis 2, where it talks about the Sabbath day and God's rest. He's still inviting people into that Sabbath rest. For indeed the gospel was preached to us as well as to them, but the word which they heard did not profit them, not being mixed with faith in those who heard it. For we who have believed do enter into that rest, as he has said, I swore in my wrath they shall not enter into my rest. I believe that comes from Psalm 95. Come, let us sing to the, how does it go? Worship the God of our salvation. So in Psalm 95, God talks about the rest that began on the 7th day of the 6 creative days. And he's still inviting people into it when the book of Hebrews was written. But this also implies that he was inviting people into it when Psalm 95 was written, in the days of David, like 1,000 years before Hebrews was written. Although the works were finished from the foundation of the world. And one of the things we pointed out in Genesis was that in the beginning, when God created the heavens and the earth, he created from nothing. And then from that point on, he makes stuff out of pre-existing material. But this is saying the works, like the material universe, was finished from the foundation of the world. Or this is the Greek word katabala, which can mean to overthrow, which could mean the overthrow of the world, which we would take us up from the original creation to the 6 days. Distinct possibility. But still, a long time before God initiated the Sabbath day. He's spoken in a certain place of the seventh day, and God rested on the seventh day from all his works. And again, in this place, they shall not enter my rest. Since there remains, since it remains that some must enter it, and those who to whom it was first preached did not enter because of disobedience, he designates a certain day, saying in David, the author of Psalm 95, today, after such a long time, it has been said, today you will hear his voice. If you hear his voice, do not enter into his rest. And then it says Joshua gave a previous generation rest, like from their enemies and so forth. Therefore, there remains a rest for God's people, and he who has entered his rest has himself ceased from his works as God did from his. So we've got all these generations where this rest of God is offered to people, and a lot of them don't receive it because they don't have faith. They don't enter because they don't have faith, or they disobey, or whatever. The question is the invitation still open to us today? And I believe it is. But when we enter into God's rest, we're not entering into a one day of the week, Saturday, day of rest, and then we go back to working after that. We're entering into an eternal rest. Probably I need to say more about that, but I'm not gonna because I want to be conscious of the time that we're using up for this. Yom Shabbat, Yom HaShabbat, is the seventh day of the week. And we've already seen that the other days of the first 6 days of the week are called Yom Ehad, Yom Sheni, Yom Shlishi, and so forth. But this seventh day is going to be eternally called Yom Shabbat. So Saturday on the Hebrew calendar is Yom Shabbat. It's not Yom HaShavi'i. It's called Yom HaShavi'i here because it's the seventh day of that 6 days plus the day of rest creative period. So God ceased mi kol malakato, which means from all his work. Now, before I said there are some prepositions that can stand alone, like min, which means from. In this case, like if you look at the information window at the bottom of the page, here's the root, here's the lexicon form, min, okay? But it can also be prefixed, in which case the noon drops out and appears as a dagesh in the next letter, and the hirek from min remains. So this is mi, kol, from all, malakato. Now, this word looks a lot like the word for angel, but it's the word for work. And I don't know if there is like a kind of a, what would it be, an etymological connection between work and angels. The word angel means messengers, so they kind of have to work to be messengers. But I don't know if there's a connection there. Malach, if we look down here, the root word is la'ach, and the lexicon form is mela'ach. I'm sorry, it's melacha, which is a feminine noun, ends in a hey. That's usually a good indication. So the root is la'ach. So I guess lamed would be the first word, first radical, then aleph and kaf, right? Yeah. And then the tav and here and holam vav ending is a third person masculine singular ending, meaning his work. So we've got la'ach, meaning work. The holam vav means his work, God's work, right? So he ceased from all his work. Now, what work did he cease from? I think it's the work of creation. I think that's the only thing he has ceased to work on since the since the Sabbath day. And even one of the scientific, like the laws of physics, is that I think it's the first law of thermodynamics, that matter cannot be created, but it can change from one form to another. That's a form of science, or it's a principle of science, which confirms for us that God has finished the creation. Now, if he decided to create another planet, could he do it? Yes, absolutely. He created all the ones that exist now. He could create another one. If he wanted to create something out of nothing, like a friend for me or something like that, could he do that? Yes, he could do that. But apparently he hasn't. All the things that he did in the 6 days of restoration or creation in the sense of making the earth inhabitable again. He made out of pre-existing material. Even when he created man and woman, he created them out of the dust of the earth, and then Eve was created out of Adam's ribs, as we'll see in later verses of chapter 2. So he has worked he has ceased from his work of creating. And he did that on the seventh day, and he's still doing it now. And he would like us to rest with him from our work, not our work of creation, but he would like us to enter into his rest, to join him in his rest, and for us to rest in him. Well, how do you do that? He's making an offer to enter into his rest. And the way you do that is by believing in Yeshua HaMashiach, in Jesus Christ, as God's Son, the Son of the Father, who also became a human being, Ben Ha'adam, the Son of Man, died on a cross for us, paid for our sins, rose from the dead and ascended into heaven, and now he's inviting us to join him. When we die physically, if we die in faith in Yeshua, then our souls and spirits will go to heaven. If we have not taken him up on his offer, then our souls and spirits will go to hell. And if you want to make that happen right now, pause the video and just pray to God, God the Father. Say, Our Father in heaven, I thank you that you have invited me to become a part of your eternal family and to enter into your rest, and I want to do that. I want to confess to you that I have committed sins in my life, probably will in the future. And I know those sins need to be paid for. And I thank you for sending your son, Yeshua, Jesus, to be my Savior, but also the Lord of my life. I thank you that his shed blood covers all my sins, past, present, and future. And I just want to say that I believe that he is your son and that he's my Lord and Savior. And I just ask you to forgive me of my sins and receive me into your eternal family so that someday I can spend eternity in heaven with you and Jesus and the Holy Spirit and all my believing friends who have gone ahead of me into heaven, and just spend eternity with you rather than to spend eternity in hell separated from you. So, yeah, a little bit of an evangelistic message there. So I think God has not created stuff from nothing since he first did that. But the New Testament says that God is still working. Jesus said, God, my Father is at work today. Well, if he's not working on creation, what is he working on? And I think the answer to that is redemption. Like the first verse of the Bible is about creating, and then God puts it the way he wants it, and then rests from his creating work. And ever since then, he's been working on redemption, how to get you and me into the kingdom, into his family, so that we'll be with him forever, wherever he is, heaven, earth, the Messianic kingdom, the new heaven, new earth, and the new Jerusalem. Wherever he is, we will be. So that's what he wants. That's what he's been working on. That's what he was working on in Jesus' day. That's what he's working on now. Every day he's rested from creation, but now he's working on us every day. And the truth is that in order to be believers, we need to have a recreated heart or spirit. Psalm 51 says, create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a right spirit within me. So we need to be born again to spend eternity with God, but he is more than willing, even eager to do that for us. So, what have we got here so far? And Elohim finished in the seventh day all of his work, which he did. Asa, just the basic form of asa, which means to do or to make, not create. Create he did on the first day, but in these 6 days, he made stuff and he yatsar, formed stuff. Vayishavot. Here we've got the word Shabbat. I think that may be the first place where Shabbat, um, like what have we had so far? All we've talked about so far in these verses is that he finished on the seventh day, but now we have the indication that he rested. So information window at the bottom of the page, we've got the text form, we've got the lexicon form, which is also the three-letter word root form, Shin Beit Tav, which means to rest or to cease from working. Rest or cease from working. So this is a kal form. It's got a vav consecutive, which means the aspect of this imperfect form. Here's our yod preformative, which tells us it's imperfect, but it's going to change because of the vav consecutive. So this is going to be perfect, a completed action. He rested on the seventh day, and he hasn't changed his resting state. So he rested and he's still resting. That took place in the past, and it extends to the present and the future. So he rested, ba yom hashvi'i. So here we've got our word yom, which means day, and a bet prefix with a patak underneath. So it's the day. Hashvi'i, he rested on the seventh day. Now, in the first phrase of Genesis 2:2, it says that God completed his work in the Yom HaShvi'i on the seventh day. Some versions say, well, that can't be right. He can't have completed his work on the seventh day because then he would be working at least part of the seventh day before he started resting. I got no problem with that. He still could have done some work, maybe during the dark hours. Then there was evening, dark. Maybe God did some work in the dark. And then in the daylight hours of the seventh day, he was done. And so he began his rest. I got no problem with that. Our New King James translates this, and on the seventh day God ended his work which he had done. On the seventh day he ended his work. I think it's the Septuagint that said he ended his work on the sixth day, because they have problems with him doing any work on the seventh day, because then I guess it's not a total day of rest or something. New King James doesn't have that problem. I think it's the New International Version, or maybe the ESV, the English Standard Version, that makes this God completed his work by the seventh day, by Yom HaShvi'i. So again, I got no problem with God working a little bit on the seventh day and then getting done and then resting for the rest of the day, and that rest has just gone on. Okay. Then let's go from everything that he had that he had made. Oh, do we have more to do here? Well, anyway, let's go ahead and translate this. He finished all he had done, and Yishvat, he rested by Yom HaShvi'i on the seventh day, Mikol HaMalakto, from all the work Asher Asa, which he had done. Let's get to Genesis 2:3. Vayivarech. One of the things we have encountered in the first 6 days of the creation or restoration is the word blessed, barach. Look at the information window at the bottom of the page. This is a PL form. barach. It is a imperfect form, but it has the vav consecutive. Shva here under the yod, so no dagish, if that even is a principle in Hebrew. Uh, so this means to bless. There's some further meanings, like deeper meanings of the word barach, which actually means to bend the knee. From our perspective, if we're going to bless God, one of the things we can do is bow down before him, to bend the knee before him. If God wants to bless us, we could say, in a way, he bends his knee to get down to our level so he can, like, say, lay hands on us and extend a blessing to us. So God deigns to lower himself by bending his knee, not to worship us as gods or even little gods or anything like that, but to have fellowship with us. So he brings himself down to our level. So that's kind of a subtle meaning of the word barak. By the way, the body part of your knee is your barak. Barak, same root. Okay. So since we've got functionally a perfect form here, and he blessed, and he blessed. Who blessed? Elohim blessed. What did he bless? Et, definite direct object indicator, yom. So because there's no hey at the beginning here, we're still going to translate this as a definite. He blessed the yom because it's got a definite direct object indicator. So even though the hey's not there, this is still definite. And the adjective that follows it, modifies it, the Shavi'i, the seventh day, does have the definite article, so that kind of extends it to the absolute noun that is modified by Shvi'i. Vaya, here again we have a vav consecutive. So God not only blessed the seventh day, but he yivakeshed the seventh day. Let's look at our information window at the bottom of the page. Text form, lexicon form, also three-letter root. Kof Dalet Sheen. It's the Hebrew word for to concentrate, concentrate, consecrate, or to make something holy, to make something holy. Kadosh, 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 Kadosh. Adonai Tzevaot. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. Kol haaretz, milo kol haaretz kevodo. The whole earth is full of your glory. So that's the word kadosh, to sanctify something, to make it holy, or to consecrate it. So he made the seventh day a special day by kadoshing it, by causing it to be holy. So if God calls the seventh day, if he speaks consecration to the seventh day, is it a holy day? It sure is, because he says it is. So he blessed the seventh day by Kadosh Oto. Oto is it's a direct object indicator, but it has a masculine singular, holem vav on the end, which makes it third masculine singular. So this is him, Oto. He blessed him. So him must be a reference to the day, but it would have to be masculine. And sure enough, if we look up the word day, it is a masculine singular absolute noun. So the Oto refers to the day. He blessed the seventh day. Ki, because, bo, in him. So here we have a prepositional prefix or a particle. I like to call it a prepositional prefix, meaning in, because in him or in it, Shabbat. So we've already encountered the word Shabbat. This is a verbal form. Shabbat, it's a call, third masculine singular. So he rested. God rested. Michal, from all. Here again, we have our min preposition that has been joined to chal. Malachato, from all. He rested from all his work. Polam vav means his work, not just any work. Asher, which, bara, he created. So here again, we're going back to Genesis 1:1, the original creation, the bara of things from nothing. So God starts his creative work with the original creation. We go through the prehistoric period, the age of angels, where there's the rebellion of the angels, and then the restoration of the earth during 6 days. So he rested from the work that he had started when he created from nothing and has continued through the 6 days. And Elohim is the subject. La'asot, to do. So what we have here is what is called an infinitive construct. To asa something. Asa means to do or to make. If we want to communicate the idea of the concept of doing something, like, for example, we could say, John was swimming. John was swimming. But if we wanted to talk about the whole idea of swimming, we could say, John likes to swim. Not just the swimming he was doing at a particular time in the past, but he likes to swim. He likes the idea, the concept of swimming. So we could also say John was doing something, but he likes the concept of doing something. So we would say he likes to do things. So in order to do this in Hebrew, we want to add to asa a prefix, namely a lamed, that is going to be translated as to, or sometimes for, to or for. Now, again, normally we would expect a shva under our lamed, but we've got a patach. The reason for that is that ayin is a guttural, and it takes what is called, what is this called? Hatef patach. So it's kind of a half a patach. But when you see that under a guttural as the first word, then the patach part of the hatef patach, comes under the prefix. So that's why we've got a patach prefix. It doesn't indicate a definite article here. So we've got an infinitive construct. Its construct, if it has a bet, mem, lamed, or kaf in front of it, it is a meaning that it's linked to other ideas. And then we also have infinitive absolutes, which this is not because it has the lamed prefix. An absolute is like a standalone idea of swimming or doing. Okay. So this is an infinitive construct, la'asot. So this would be like, the idea is Elohim's doings, Elohim's doings. So he likes to do. So that brings us to the end of our video for today. We got through all three verses, which I feel great about, and did some kind of in-depth study there. In the next video, what we're going to be doing is taking Genesis 2:4. This is the history of the heavens and the earth when they were created in the day that, and then we have this word Lord with all caps. God made the earth and the heavens. So in the next video, we'll probably just read through the Hebrew, but I'm going to spend the whole video on talking about this word, Lord, because that's really not what that word is. Again, if we go down to the information window at the bottom of the page, we have what is called the Tetragrammaton. This is not the word Adonai, as in Aleph, Dalet, uh, Yod, Adonai. I'm not sure how that word is spelled in Hebrew. This is the sacred name of God. This is the name of God that the commandment says, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord. It's pronounced Adonai by respectful Jews, I guess you would say, respectful non-Messianic Jews, but it is the sacred name of God that you're not supposed to take in vain. So in order not to take it in vain, they don't pronounce it at all. They substitute a different word, Adonai. So the consonants here are for the sacred name. The vowels are for Adonai. Adonai, which I can't remember. I can't remember what the consonants are for Adonai. I'll know it when I see it. So you've got the consonants for one word and the vowels for another word to remind people that when they come across this in the Hebrew Bible, they should not say the sacred name, but they should say Adonai instead. There are other substitutions as well. Maybe you've heard Hashem, which is Hebrew for the name, like the sacred name. We're going to go into the sacred name, and I'm going to teach you how I believe the evidence indicates that it can be pronounced, maybe should be pronounced. When I give you the blessing here in a few minutes, I'm going to say the sacred name because that comes from Numbers chapter 6. And the directions that God gave to Moses for this priestly blessing is that he was to put God's name, he was to put the sacred name on the people. And I think the only way you can do that is to say it. Saying it is offensive to non-Messianic Jews, but I think it needs to be done. So that's what I'm planning to do. So for the next video, we're just going to focus on the sacred name. And then the video after that, we'll focus on verse 4 and maybe some verses after that. So let me go ahead and give you the blessing for number 6, as I indicated before. Yivorechecha Yahweh vayishmarecha, Ya'er Yahweh panav elecha vayuhunecha, Isa Yahweh panav elecha vayasem lecha shalom, which in English means, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. The Lord lift up his countenance on you and give you peace. Shalom, shalom, my friends. Hope we see you for the next video about the sacred name.